Oh, come on.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
Ah, thank you, Keanu Reeves. I cannot wait for Cyberpunk, and for those wondering, did I change my morning coffees with James? Well, I'm trying something new. I'm gonna go with Johnny Silverhand telling you to wake the fuck up, and let's talk about our morning coffee today. So, welcome to Morning Coffees. I don't know how loud that is, because I did it in the last video. It's a little louder. So, by the way, Cyberpunk is owned by Project DK, I think it is, or CK. And this music is not owned by me, so it's this song coming up is Head Splitter by Cyberpunk, which is a new style of punk now. Welcome to the show. Welcome to this futuristic cyberpunk. We kind of are living in a cyberpunk universe, but we're getting close to it. Morning. Speaking about video games, today's episode is going to be about a video game that came out in, say, 2011, the same time as Skyrim, called Saints Row the Third. Now, for those who don't know, Saints Row was a game that came out in 2004 and was a exclusive for the Xbox 360. The game was okay. Graphically, the game wasn't that great, but it was originally going to be. It was basically a GTA simulator, and it focused on starting a gang and stuff like that, and all this. And originally it was yes, and I'm drinking milk. Originally it was going to be released for the PlayStation 2, but they scrapped it and went with the 360 because of the more advanced hardware that the 360 has over the PlayStation 2. However, the game looked like shit. Didn't run like shit. It was still fun. I still think the game looks absolutely amazing. Saints Row 1 was a pretty fun game, and in my mind, a really groundbreaking game because there's a lot of activities you could do. Minus the regular do this, and this, regular crime stuff. There was a lot of things that had fun with the ragdoll physics. There was insurance fraud. There was a hitman mission, which was obnoxious because you had to use a specific weapon to kill somebody. There was, a lot of other things, and I love the mission structure too. So, for example, if you were to say do a mission where you had to take on there's three gangs in the game. There's the Yellow Gang, which is the black gangster rapper, Empire Records kind of gang, the Latino drug gang, and the Street Rollers, which are a bunch of white suburban / Asian Americans gang, and it's kind of based on the Vin Diesel movie Fast and the Furious a little bit. It's funny though. I think it's kind of cool. There's also and that's it. So that game was good. I mean, there's a lot of activities and stuff like that you can do in the mission structure for both games too, which I'll get into in just a moment. But then, the second game came out, and that came out in 4 years later, I think. And they advanced. I was excited because it looked like a better advancement from the original game. Now, granted, at this time, when I heard about the Saints Row 2 announcement, I knew nothing about Saints Row. When I played that first game, I fell in love because of how in-depth it was. Granted, it was kind of janky, but it was a good jank. Saints Row 2 came out, and I fell in love with it because one of the things they did, and this is something publishers and developers and game makers should look at, listen to your fans and ask them what they want, and they got it. They had gender diversity in that game. Basically, you could be a female or a male. More activities, more outlandish stuff. The locations were more dense. There were more more unique gangs. Like, yes, same color scheme, but instead of like yellow, the only one that was different was a green gang, and that was like a drug cartel of Rastafarians, of zombies, Haitians in a sense, who were into voodoo too. And you had a samurai gang, and you had like a Samoan monster truck gang, and it was a very diverse game. Like, you know, you could create your own character. Kind of, this game was like before this whole gender fluid thing came popular. So yeah. Another thing I absolutely loved about that game too is the fact that you could customize your characters, do whatever you want. Like, say you want to dual wield, not dual wield, have a machine gun, this, that. It was very diverse, and the mission structure too was very interesting too, because you to advance in the game, you had to have a high level of respect. Like, say for instance, you wanted to take on the Yakuza, you had to have a high level of respect before you took on the next mission. And it was very interesting how they did it too. Like, you could do activities to like power yourself up and give you more whatever you needed. You could do funner missions. There was streaking. Yes, you can go completely nude in these games, which it was, in my mind, pretty awesome. Like, but they blurred it out, so it was like, oh, you don't see anything. But then again, they don't like animate like any like parts, if you know what I mean. Which is like, who gives a shit? Who cares? They're not drawing the thingy on there. Another thing I absolutely love about these games too was the fact that it was kind of like, you know, where the first game was a GTA clone, the second game was more of a supervillain simulator. Oh, one of the best missions in that game, one of the side quests, is basically you drive around in a septic truck spraying everything with raw sewage. That is awesome. That is awesome. And, you know, they had the other as other games would have it in there too. Like, you do escort missions where you had to like escort a drug dealer to a different spot and location to do their drug mission so they wouldn't get shot up. You could do hitman missions, but this time they didn't give you the restrictions on it. You can cause mayhem, which is always fun because, and again, nothing gets really destroyed in the game. Like, you could throw a pipe bomb in a building would be fine, but the fence, no, take that fence. But yeah, it was still kind of like, it bordered on being serious and ridiculous at the same time. So they took that note, and again, Saints Row 2 was a very very balanced experience, you know, and again, and a testament to why you should listen to your fans and ask them what they want. And sometimes you gotta just do what you gotta do and be a Hideo Kojima, but don't turn into, say, Kathleen Kennedy and Naughty Dog and the rest of these people who, you know, make something and then like call you names and tell you to just watch it, you big pussy, like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I were to just say to you, hey, faggot, watch the show. Oop. Excuse me, I'm gonna get banned now. But then again, Joe Rogan's getting out of there. But you know, stuff like that. And I excuse for using that word. I'm sorry. I have gay friends, and I shouldn't be using that word. But then again, Eminem has used it several times, and the left love him. Why? I don't know. I guess when you can do whatever you want as long as you pick the right party. Damn it, I can't not avoid politics. Okay, I know I shouldn't have been talking about politics in this review, but let's get back to the real topic at hand, and that is Saints Row 3. So, in 2011, Saints Row 3 was developed, and I was excited because the game looked prettier, it looked nicer, it had very nice graphics in it. But there were some things that I just didn't like. For instance, it was way too goofier and sillier in that sense. I like a serious story, but the game itself, like when I first played it, the game itself was just kind of like way too crackpot silly, you know what I mean? Like, oh, we have furries running around, and we have a luchador gang, and we have a cyberpunk gang, and we have this like, some of it was just so over the top and ridiculous that it kind of lost its like momentum. Like, granted, the game was fluid and just pretty to look at, but it felt empty. Like Stillwater and like Saints Row 2, it felt alive. it felt alive. And like, it basically, if you were to like be idle for a few minutes, your character would do like an activity. Say like if he was near weights, he would start lifting weights. If he was near like a pier, he would start fishing. If he was like on the street, he would start smoking. Like, there was a lot of like little details in the game that, like, granted, it looked janky as shit. And I was replaying it on the PlayStation 4. On the PlayStation Plus store. It was great. I loved it. But the problem with that game is the fact that it was too janky. And I keep using the word janky because this game is not as janky as the other one. This one's more cartoonish and over the top. Then they came out with Saints Row 4, which in my mind was a perfect balance. They went over the top and said, fuck it, we're gonna go on a swan song and end the game series right there. They released Get Out of Hell, that kind of expanded the story a little bit and kind of retconned the entire thing. So basically, in that story, in the story of Saints Row 4, they blow up the Earth. So basically, after killing all the gangs in the third gang, in the third gang and game in the fourth game, you have to fight an alien, an alien race that takes everybody over and blows up the Earth. Like, they literally just retcon the Earth. Like, okay, the Earth is destroyed, and now you gotta restart the Earth. And they do a time travel plot in there, which you could have retconned everything, but they kind of don't focus on it. So they just sent your character to hell, and you have to play as either Johnny Gat or Kensington to rescue the boss. And Gat, minus the Doomslayer, Gat is a very vicious beast when it comes to fighting in hell. Fast forward. So anyway, the ending to Get Out of Hell is basically, there's several different endings. You can go to a different planet where it's basically the predators you have to fight. Find the mysteries of the universe, this, that, this. One of them is retconning the Earth. And basically what happens is they retcon the Earth, and in this version now, it's the Saints are now cops. Which I would have loved for the 5th Saints Row game, if you were to play, like, cops that had free range to do whatever they want. Like, that's awesome. I like the idea. And you had to take the city back from, like a corrupt gang. I would have loved that. And that's where Agents of Mayhem came from. That's why one of the characters' name is Brimstone in it. So, and it is Supervillain Simulator, where you are playing as superheroes fighting bad guys. I haven't played it, but I do want to try it. But that game didn't do as well, and I feel like that's where they kind of lost their edge a little bit, where it's like, okay, the reason why we loved the Saints Row games was the fact that it was kind of do whatever you want kind of thing. Like, they made a sandbox, gave us all the toys that we wanted, gave us everything that we needed, and said, had fun. And I like that. I like that idea. You know what I mean? And so, a few years later, so basically 2020, we get a remaster, and I mean this too, a remaster from the ground up. They rebuilt everything from the ground up, a new Saints Row game. And I have to say, I really am enjoying myself again. And I remember, because again, from 2011 to 2020, we didn't have any, game that was, fun like that. We started getting realistic game after realistic game, and more ground and dirty. And then, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, and everybody was like, oh, how realistic this was. And then it turned into Saints Row. It went from, the reason why people loved the GTA 4 and 5, it was grounded in reality. But then they decided, reality kind of sucks. And it's like, they gave you flying cars, they gave you hover bikes, they gave you a lot of shit that, virtually just why people love Saints Row. It virtually ruined it, in my mind. Because eventually now it was no longer, the Saints game that we had. And granted, Grand Theft Auto has a lot of over-the-top things in it, especially with San Andreas with a jetpack. But it still maintained a certain, this is what's happening now. But after playing this, and I'm enjoying myself again. I'm remembering why this game was so popular and why I loved it, because of how over the top it was, how ridiculous it was. Granted, does it feel empty? Yes, but not in the sense that it feels it doesn't feel like Saints Row 2 anymore. Because Saints Row 2 had this very diverse, very lived-in city. This feels, again, like it's populated, but it doesn't feel lived in again. So, but it is prettier. It is gorgeous. It's running on a different engine. It's the Saints Row, like, and again, after playing games that were realistic and watching games that were just like grounded with deep story, this feels more back to basics again. Like, okay, this is why I remember why we love playing video games, and I love playing this game. Like everything's been customized like to an extent. Like, let me look at it. I just want to take a look one more time with it, and then I gotta get going. But my controller is dying too. So yeah, like this game feels. It has better dynamic with like lighting and stuff like that too, so it doesn't feel as cartoony anymore, and it feels realistic. It feels more real, you know what I mean? It feels not realistic. They didn't go with realistic graphics or anything like that. It feels more alive with the atmosphere, you know, with the graphics and the, you know, the environment, the lighting, the shadows, the weather effects, the city. One thing I will say though, again, bring back the idle animations, like, because if you were to stand still, you could do stuff with like other people in the game. And again, the weapon system, I forgot how fun like the combat was in this, like how over the top it was. You could do wrestling move, you can run into somebody and do like a wrestling move, like clothesline them, or do like a acrobatic stunt, or you know, drag and drop kick them, which, you know, is fun. I feel like games nowadays are focusing on being real, on the idea of realism is much more funner. And granted, it is, but I sometimes feel like we forget that video games should be video game. Like, you know, Metal Gear Solid 5 is a very, like, example of that. If you want to talk about open world games, is a very open. It's a video game gamey game. You know what I mean? Like, it's grounded in reality, but it allows the player to get like items in it to make it more excitable. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can get one of the weapons you can get in the game is like you have basically a prosthetic hand that becomes a bionic hand. You can knock people out with it, and also use it as like a rocket fist hand. A lot of people are like, well, this is ruining the story of Metal Gear Solid. It's called Phantom Pain for a reason, folks, because it never happened. And also, you're talking about a game series that had cyborg ninjas, AI secret societies, guys who can control bees, dislocate their shoulders to become more arachnid. You know, you had Ghost Soldiers, you had Psycho Mantis, you have giant robots, which the whole game series is about. You have, you know, but again, it's one of those game series that I absolutely enjoy. Like, and again, I don't hate realism. I think that when you focus on trying to be more realistic, you lose that edge of being fun. You know what I mean? Like, for example, Duke Nukem and Doom are two examples of this. Duke Nukem, when Duke Nukem Forever came out, it was bordering on to being too realistic. Because, like, when you were playing, like, a game like that, like a first-person high twitch shooter, you want all the guns. You don't want just 2 slots for your guns. Like, here's your pistol, and then here's your shotgun. Oh, wait, you gotta switch out. Like, why can't I not have in reality, a pistol will go on your, like, side, you know, and then you could have like a shotgun and then like put a rifle there. Like, you could have more than just 2. That's not realistic. Like, Halo, I don't think Halo destroyed the idea of realism in video games. Destroyed the fun factor in video games. It was combat evolved, but like it stopped being that. So Saints Row, yeah, this is again a game that is fun. Back to the game, but this is a game that is like, it is fun, and it does give a middle finger to realism in that sense, because it doesn't want to be realistic. It wants to be over the top and outrageous, because that's what this kind of game is. It's a, you know, supervillain simulator, and it's playing like a video game gaming. Like, it is fun in that sense, and people kind of forget that. People kind of like forget that, like, you know. And granted, I would love to see if they would really listen to the fans, remaster, and I mean this too, remaster Saints Row 2 from the ground up. And maybe Saints Row 1. Actually, remaster both those games. Like, the entire trilogy, remaster them. And give us Saints Row 5. Like, give us a Saints Row 5 game that, like, takes place, that takes place in an alternate timeline where the Zen army doesn't come to Earth, and yeah, that's what they're called. And the Saints take on another over-the-top gang, but it's more grounded in reality. You know what I mean? And give us the things like Saints Row 2 gave us. Like, for example, you could dual-wield in that game, but you had a choice to dual-wield. Like, you could hold down, like you say, if you had a pistol, like a 9mm pistol, and there was another one like it on the ground, you could pick it up and dual-wield. But in this, you have to get, it's an upgrade, which I think is kind of stupid in the sense. But overall, this game, I'm gonna go back to playing it again, and I forget, and like, again, we've been so bombarded with, like, realism, and it's just, the whole idea of realism immersion kind of gets old after a while, so it's fun and refreshing to see a game like this again. So, would I recommend this game? Yes. Go out and get it. If you were a fan of the Saints Row games, and you really love 3, go get it. I say support, Volition and Deep Silver, and ask them, remake the other 2 games. I'm okay with not getting a remake for 4, but honestly, at the end of the day, I do want a Saints Row 5, because we need a Saints Row game again. We need a game that lets the player do whatever the fuck they want. If you want to run around naked, beating up people, fine. If you want to be super villainous, fine. If you want to be a street gangster, fine. If you want to be it's all about player choice with these games. So at the end of the day, I would recommend getting Saints Row 3 if you want to support Volition. I did, and I was like, I know there's Saints Row fans out there who are like, how dare you? This is not a Saints Row. You know what? If Volition hears our voices again, and they've done it before, they can do it again, I wouldn't mind them having another Saints Row game that is, like, back to basics again. Let's have that again. Let's have a game that lets you do what the fuck they want, and there's no hand-holding, or you must learn with GTA 4 and 5, and in extension, Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2, you must learn the etiquettes of gangsterism, of being a criminal. First of all, you must learn how to drive. First of all, you must learn how to express the emotions of respect and honor, and just like, I'm a fucking criminal! For a game of, like, in the words of Nakey Jakey, for a game about being an outlaw, there's a lot of restrictions in this game. There's a lot of rules. And it's like, nobody wants so many rules in their fucking video game about being an outlaw. If you want to be an outlaw, be an outlaw. And again, if my thing for Volition and Deep Silver, if they ever make another video game, Supervillain Simulator. I have an idea. Let's talk. I know I'm just some random YouTuber on TV with about 23 subscribers. Hopefully we can get that number up. So, yeah. But yeah, that's it. I really recommend Saints Row the Third Remastered. Play it, retry it again. Granted, it's not as good as Saints Row 2 in the aspects of how deep it is, but it is still a fun game. And you've kind of have to remember, okay, this is a game that definitely pushed the envelope. And if we get Volition's voice, if we can make Volition hear our voice again and Deep Silver hear our voice again, I'm okay with that. So, with that being said, thank you for watching this morning Call of Duty with James. I will see you guys in the next episode. Take care, love you, and bye-bye. And remember to stay awesome. You got the touch, and you got the power. Peace.